I don't remember writing in my dream journal. Then why is it filled out in my handwriting? A week ago I discovered the concept of lucid dreaming. I immediately loved it and started to dig into the internet on guides of how to do it. I watched hours worth of YouTube videos. I scrolled through r/lucid dreaming. I set myself alarms to try to wake myself up at the start of my REM periods, and I tried all sorts of techniques. Nothing worked. Then I came across some posts mentioning the importance of a dream journal, and I decided to give it a shot. After a short trip to a physics, I had a small A5 exercise book all ready to record my dreams in. I set it on my bedside table complete with a sharpened new pencil. I was adamant on having a lucid dream. A few days pass, and I barely remember my dreams. Each entry in my diary is under a paragraph. One day I even left blank because I couldn't remember anything. I stopped writing the dream journal altogether and just continued on with my life. Today, however, something different happened. I woke up to my dream journal filled out in my handwriting. A whole page was written out for the day. My initial reaction was confusion, as I didn't remember writing any entry. Then it was curiosity. What could I have written in my sleep? I picked up the journal and started reading it. I woke up drowning. I wasn't drowning, I was floating in water. I tried to get up and banged my head on something. It was glass. I'm stuck inside a glass pod filled with water. The water tastes weird. I push the glass pod and it opens. I step out in a little room that is filled with these pods. They aren't fully glass. Only the lids are made of glass. The rest looks like shiny metal. All the other people in the pods are dead. No, they're sleeping. I have woken up. I walk out of the room into a long hallway. At this moment I realize that I'm wearing nothing. I go back to the room and find some sort of gown next to my pod. I wear it. I walk down the hallway, it's empty. The hallway is pristine white all round. You can't tell the difference between the floor and the roof. I walk and walk for what feels like days. At regular intervals on either side, there is a door to more and more pod rooms. Some rooms are empty, some half full and some full. I continue walking until an alarm sounds. Subject 1,569,420 is untethered. A man rushed towards me, suddenly appearing out of nowhere. He threw something, and my vision fades to black. My first thought was that was a crazy dream. Then I was amazed at how I managed to write such a narrative in my sleep. Something felt wrong. This wasn't my usual dream and I knew it. It was unsettling how I didn't remember writing any of this. Did I have a carbon monoxide leak in my house? I turned over the page of my dream journal and found this message written in my rushed, crazy handwriting. You are not awake. Do not forget. I could recognize it as my handwriting, but it was written as if I had to write it while running away from the monster in the closet. You get what I mean, it was rushed. Anyways, I set it all off and got ready for school. I looked outside and it was a bright sunny day. I had a science test today, so I wasn't gonna let this get to my head. Upon walking downstairs, I noticed two things. A, my parents were not downstairs making breakfast like they would do on a usual weekday. B, it was pitch black outside. I checked my watch and surely it was 3 AM. Moreover, it wasn't Friday, it was Saturday. I don't know what I was more worried about, that I either somehow slept a whole day and missed my science test, or something was seriously wrong with my memory. I clearly remember it being 7 AM when I woke up and checked my watch, and it being a sunny day. I walked back up to my room and sat back in my bed. I counted my fingers just to be sure I wasn't dreaming, and yes, I wasn't. I fell back asleep as I was thinking about what had happened to me. The next morning, I woke up to my dream journal on my table, filled out frantically again. I woke up in water. I was inside a pod, I think. I remember this pod. I step out of it and find myself in a familiar room. It's filled with lots of pods and people are sleeping in them. I walk out of the room and find myself in a familiar, never-ending hall. I spotted a small vent in the corner of the room I came out of. It was large enough for me to crawl through. I crawled through the vent until I reached a room again. The room was an empty computer room. People were sitting at their little screens watching something. Every once in a while someone moved and pressed a button. A guy sitting next to the vent spotted me. An emergency alarm rang. Subject 1,569,420 is untethered. My vision faded to black. I turned the page and again, written in frantic and messy handwriting, a message was written. Water 5 ml, rubbing alcohol 1 ml, hydrogen peroxide 0.5 ml, Coke 5 ml. I was growing ever more confused and concerned about myself. Was I experiencing some sort of mental problem? Psychosis? Dissociation? I checked my watch and it was 8 AM. I repeated that in my head over and over again as I walked out downstairs. When I went down, my parents were making breakfast and my little brother was sitting in the living room watching TV. What was I expecting? I picked a bottle of Coke from the fridge and measured it out with the little plastic measuring cup in the kitchen. I measured out the same quantities of rubbing alcohol and water as well. After mixing them together, I opened up a medicine cabinet and found a bottle of hydrogen peroxide. I poured a few drops through a dropper into the mixture I had made. My mum then suddenly walks into the kitchen and sees what I'm doing. It was a short conversation. I told her I was doing something for my upcoming chemistry assignment and she left me alone after looking at me suspiciously. The mixture was a deep black. I realized that I made the mixture for no reason as I had no idea what to do with it. I took the mixture up to my room and left it on the table. The next day I woke up again to my dream journal filled out. The entry was very short. They are keeping me in the pots. I can't get out. I need to become untethered. On the next page in frantic handwriting and big bold letters, drink it. I don't know if I'm being stupid or not. I will drink the mixture tonight. If I stay alive I will update. Why you shouldn't open sealed doors. In the mid 2010s, when I was about 12, I moved with my parents and sister into a very old house. It had 3 floors not including the basement. Me and my sister's bedrooms were upstairs on the 2nd floor, and our parents' bedroom was just below us. My sister was a year younger than me, being 11. We lived in that house until I was about 17. 2 years after we moved in, a little bit after my 14th birthday, me and a couple of my friends, Sean and Gavin, decided that we were gonna go fuck around in the basement, but we obviously would have to break into the basement seeing as the door was sealed and locked, and since my parents weren't there, we did it. In hindsight, it was obviously a terrible idea, but we were a couple of 14-year-old boys. We had zero common sense. Whoever did this really didn't want it to get opened, I thought, as Sean took a myriad of different tools to the wood glue used to glue the door shut. We had tools ranging from a shovel and a crowbar to a screwdriver and a knife. After about 15 minutes of trying, we eventually got all through the glue and lock. Gavin pushed the old door open, and it made a loud screeching sound as it was opened for the first time in probably over a decade. As we entered the basement, the air was thick with dust, and it was filled with cobwebs. There were boxes and there were tall metal shelves dotted around the main room. As we entered, we were hit with the sickened scent of death, but again we were stupid. We had assumed that animals had died after crawling either the small windows or something. Holy shit, Sean cursed while coughing. Something died in here, goddamn, he said jokingly. We messed around for a few minutes in the main room, opening old boxes and looking at pictures from around 1965 or so, around when our grandparents were our age. We were having fun until we heard a loud banging coming from one of the small rooms. It was a continuous pattern and it was steady. All of us crept over to the door. I reached for the handle, but Sean grabbed my wrist and he shook his head, mouthing the word no, and we stepped back slightly as he pulled my hand away. What are we gonna do about it though? Gavin asked quietly, gesturing towards the door. By this time the bang had gotten quiet and was now just a light tapping on the wooden door. We are going to walk away, Sean urged as he started to walk away towards the stairs up. No way. Gavin whisper shouted, "Don't be a pussy scene. Let's open it," he added. I stupidly agreed with Gavin and put my hand on the metal knob. Scene shook his head and continued to walk away. If being a pussy means I don't get murdered, then whatever, he laughed as he jogged up the basement stairs. I didn't open the door right away though. I waited a moment. "Mitch, what are you waiting for?" Gavin asked, just nervous, I replied, shaking my head. I turned the knob and flung the door open, and to our surprise, the room wasn't empty. Inside was an old bed and a dirty old rug. It was a surprisingly big room. The tapping had stopped completely at this point, and me and Gavin looked at each other, confused, obviously. I poked my head in and peered into the dark room. This whole time we had been mostly using our phone flashlights. Gavin stepped in and shined his phone light into the room, and something under the bed caught the light. Now we had both realized that this was a bad idea, but before I could state my concern, the thing lunged out at me and Gavin, or more accurately, it pinned Gavin down onto the floor, causing his phone to go flying across the floor. Neither of us could tell what the fuck was going on, but we were both screaming. And that obviously got the attention of Scene, who was just outside the basement at the time. I ran over to whatever it was and kicked it in the side, which seemed to be enough to knock it off of him. I pulled Gavin up, and I don't think I've ever ran faster in my life. I slammed the door behind us, and we both ran screaming directly into Scene. "What the fuck was down there?" he yelled. I don't know, I was panicking, while Gavin was yelling in pain. Whatever it was, and bitten into his arm, and he was literally dripping blood into the floor of the downstairs living room. We went to the bathroom and wrapped his arm with gauze and ran to my neighbor's house to go to the hospital. We went to the hospital and Gavin got his arm stitched up. Obviously, the neighbor called our parents and the cops to go see what the hell was in the basement. When the cops and animal control got there, the basement door was wide open and there were dirty prints going out the back door. The police asked what we had seen. When I kicked it, I felt it was bony. I couldn't see much in the dark, but from what I remember, the bumps on its spine seemed pointed, and a tail extended from its back. It had dog-like back legs and glowing eyes. But the police never found it. People had just brushed it off as a wolf. All of us knew, including the doctors, who couldn't figure out what had bitten him. They had explained it as if a person with dog-like teeth had been who'd bitten him. Gavin had been recording at the time, and the flashlight only caught a slight glimpse of it. It had only caught the spikes in its back. Ever since August 7, 2012, pets and small children have gone missing occasionally when they wander away. They had only ever found small remains of them. Me, Scene and Gavin are all still friends and are in our first year of uni now, and Gavin still has a harsh scar on his arm. But none of us will ever forget what we saw that afternoon.